Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3.
All right, as it's 7 PM, we will call to order our public hearing tonight for the annexation of real properties located in Goshen Townships. We have two parcels, parcels 25-01-887-00 and parcel 25-01989-000. Anybody that wishes to speak for or against the annexation of these two parcels, please stand up and speak. How about the public's no one here? Council, any comments by council? Administration? Then we will move forward with the resolution 39-2022 on tonight's agenda. Hearing none, a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All right, need a second?
Second.
Second, all right, thanks, Cheryl. All right, we'll adjourn at 7:01. This meeting of New Philadelphia City Council will now come to order. Would you please rise, remain standing for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Father, we just thank you for this beautiful day that we had here in January of 2023. And as we start a new year, we just pray that you will be with this council and our decision-making in the coming year. Father, we just ask you to be with our men that are serving in the military. We ask you to be with our police force and our firemen as they're out to protect the citizens of New Philadelphia. And we pray for all our businesses here in 2023 that it will be a prosperous year for them. We just give you all the praise and ask all these in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Present electronically.
Mr. Lanzer.
Here?
Mrs. May.
Present.
Mr. Pace.
Here.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Ricklick.
Present.
Did I say Mr. Selfrider?
No, he's
Okay.
resigned, so, all right, thank you. Everybody's had a chance to review the agenda. I guess before we get to the agenda, everybody's had a chance to look at committee assignments. We need to get those approved here. Committee assignments for 2023. I passed those out. Some of you got them at the last council meeting. So I would entertain a motion to approve those for 2023. Mr. Rickley, need a second? Mrs. May, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call.
Miss-
Actually, I had a question.
Yes.
Should we do a vote before the new council member comes on? Is that okay?
You gotta get the committee assignments.
Okay.
going.
Good, yeah,
I have
that's
stuff
first
that I
15
get.
days.
No, I was just making sure.
Yeah.
The first 15 days, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have 15 days to
So-
do that.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, so those will be the committee assignments. And we have our new council member. He will be blocked into those assignments. Everybody's had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda for tonight's council meeting? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Alonso, thank you. Need a second? Mrs. May, thank you. Any discussion by council, administration? Roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland. Mr. Holland.
I think he's muted.
Oh,
You muted yourself.
Mr. Holland. Oh, you can't hear. No.
Go on.
Okay. Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right. All right, minutes. Everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from our last council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Pace, need a second? Mr. Lancer, thank you. Any discussion by council, administration? Roll call.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Abstain.
All right, correspondence, Ms. Courtwright.
To council and administration from Jamie Bailey, the Executive Administrative Assistant to the Mayor, dated January 3rd, 2023. This is the Mayor's month-end report for the month of December 2022. To council and administration from Mayor Day, this is dated January 4th, 2023. This is a forwarded email titled Jay Hottinger joins Sunday Creek Horizons. To council and administration from Heather Denham, the Administrative Assistant to the Auditor, dated January 6, 2023. This is the statement of cash position from revenue and expense for December of 2022, the expense report with encumbrance detail for December of 22, and the requisition purchase orders and payment request report for the December of 2022. To council clerk from Treasurer Gerber, this is dated January 9th, 2023. This is the December 2022 deposits to the general account and the City of New Philadelphia Investment and Savings Report. To council and administration from Auditor Gundy. This is dated January 9th, 2023. This is an email titled 2023 Preliminary Outlook, and it was replied to by Mrs. Ramos. To council and administration from Income Tax Administrator for the city, Vicki Daniels, dated January 9th, 2023. This is an email titled Tax Totals for December of 2022, and this was replied to by Mayor Day. And to council and administration dated January 9th, 2023, the mayor's report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Ms. Courtwright. We'll move into our administrative reports. First up, we have Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members, fellow administrators, and guests. From the report that I sent you earlier today, I just want to highlight one of the project updates that I sent you. This week, the Ohio EPA will begin a Phase 2 environmental study on the former Puritan Laundry property on the east side of Mill Avenue Southwest. Study is necessary so that the city can take ownership of that property once the study is completed. And demolition of the buildings on the west side of Mill Avenue should be done this month. The city's awaiting a report on an asbestos abatement survey before we can start that. Tomorrow at the monthly meeting of the City Planning Commission, the members will learn about two proposed business developments: a car wash to be built on the southern Menards outlot at 611 Bluebell Drive Northwest, and a dental clinic at 175 Market Commons Southwest behind BW3s. In a related note, Petco is working through the permitting process to build its new store on Bluebell Drive Northwest on Menards North Outlot. Construction of these developments is expected this year, and Service Director McAbeer informed us today that the steel has arrived for the Petco store, so construction on that will happen here soon. I think they want to have it completed in 90 days.
90 days, yes.
That's great. And also, I've appointed Federal Administrative Judge Bob Preston, Attorney Lacey Felix, and Kevin Mulligan, former city firefighter and state highway patrolman, as the new members of the City Civil Service Commission. Safety Director Popham will provide more details about those appointments and the commission during his report to council tonight. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Any questions from the mayor? All right, no,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mayor Day. Move on to Service Director, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick update on the Park Lane and North Broadway water line project. As we all know, Park Lane has been completed. They're up there now working on North Broadway. The water department made the taps on Friday. So now they're hooking everybody up. There's only 5 up there. They thought maybe they'd get it done today, which I'm sure they would, but they ran into some problems up there with the pipe. So they had to remove some of the old. So I look for that to start the temporary, when I say temporary, ditch repair. They should have that done by the end of the week, and they'll pull out of there by Friday, they believe. And temporarily means that they're gonna put the low-density concrete in, and then in the spring, when they get blacktop, come back, get the 3 inches out, put the blacktop back on, and finish North Broadway. So again, by the end of the week, that project should be wrapped up, barring any unforeseen issues. Also, on December 21st, we held the third reading, or the third bid opening for Glen Drive, the project that just, we can't get anybody to bid on. We did get 2 bids were received that day, but the engineer's quote, her estimate was $472,000. The closest one we had was $588,000, well above the 10% awardable. So I believe after talking with Superintendent Myers over the last couple of weeks, I believe we're gonna move forward with it. We don't wanna cut it down any, because right now it's spaced at getting 50% of it done and then another 50%. So we hate to put it in a third. I don't know that, let's just be honest, I don't know if it'll ever get done if we don't at least go half and then try to get the other half done. So we're gonna put it back out for bid and then award it and have the engineer's estimate naturally be up there to meet the actual numbers that are out there in the real world right now. So again, this was been going on long enough, and we've seen prices increase like this and expect these increases, and I think that Quicksall sees that now too, and we'll have to adjust that. So Once we rebid that, which will probably be hopefully by the end of January here, go out twice and I'll give an update once we have another bid opening. So, also, general services, leaves have been completed right before Christmas there they got done. So if anybody, has leaves, let's, bag them up, put them out with the regular sanitation route and, have the guys pick them up there. And also, since the last, council meeting, December 14th, the OPWC meeting met here in council chambers, and if everybody remembers, we had a grant opportunity there for Phase 2 of the Franklin Square, and we was awarded a grant in the amount of $299,900. So, and that is Phase 2. So that'll be awarded in July. So we sure appreciate the group at OPWC. And that's the end of my report.
All right, any questions for Mr. McAmery? Mr. Rickley?
Ron, nothing that you covered tonight, but, and I may have missed it, that piece of property on Bluebell Drive that Kane Chicken was looking at, did that ever sell? Did anything ever happen to that? So that's, has just passed on? Okay, that's all I was,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, they haven't really got back and,
Okay,
okay,
all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. McAmery? All right, thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Move on to Safety Director, Mr. Popham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Just to elaborate a little more on the new Civil Service Commission. It basically consists of 3 members. Back in December, we had 2 members that submitted resignations. And the 3rd member, after several letters and a certified letter, there was a failure to respond to those. So we just went ahead and appointed a 3rd member to the commission. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Popham? All right, thanks. All right, move on to the auditor's report, Mrs. Gundy.
Thank you, Mr. President. You all either probably saw my email or saw the spreadsheet that I laid out in front of you for tonight. Some of the budgets need to be revisited. A couple that look like they have a problem, we were just a little overzealous in budgeting, and we just need to back some of those out. But I'm sure Finance Committee's gonna wanna get busy on that at some point. And we are also, through my department, now using web-based remote payroll. It seems to be going pretty well. This is only the 2nd payroll that we've done. But I think everybody's getting the hang of it, and we're really trying to eliminate paper and, eliminate some of the processes and that kind of thing, so we'll keep going with that.
All right, any questions? So I guess Kelly, Mr. Rickley, you take that into the Finance Committee to,
I'll give you a call and see what we need to do, yes,
Okay.
I'll take
All
that,
right.
thank you very much.
yeah, we'll look at those budgets. All right, move on to Treasurer, Mr. Gerber.
Yes, I have a couple things that I want to go over. First of all, our 5-year contract with Chase has expired. We are now working with First Federal for our banking needs. The conversion will be very lengthy because of the different types of deposits and everything, so we'll keep our Chase accounts the way they are, but eventually we'll institute these other deposits into it. Secondly, I've given you a report, it says City of New Philadelphia, December 2022 Investment and Savings Report. This is going to be, if you open it up, it's going to be the yearly, okay? Which December is included in that. And I'll just go over it briefly. We look at Star Ohio, that's a savings place. Star Ohio Plus, First Federal Savings, there's a CD there. First Federal Savings, there's a CD there. Our Chase payroll account, which naturally that's going to be fluctuate. Chase general account, that's exactly the same thing. Chase secondary account, that deals with the fire department. Then US Bank meter investments and Chase high yield savings. So we look at January, if you total all of those, the city's worth is $12,915,751.68. And you can kind of go through there each month, and I give the report to Julie every month on this. Then you go to the last one, which would be December of this year. So we're up to $14,170,262.70. So what happens there is, we're looking good, at least I think so, because of all the different expenditures, money's coming in, and the balance of it, we're ahead. And I'll give you an example on that US Bank, that investment firm of Meter Investments. And they deal with US treasuries, things like that in our account. We put in this month $3,391.26. And this has been in that approximate area every month. So monies are going into this account from what we've done in our investments. Okay, any questions on that? Yes,
So is the US Bank meter and everything gonna go to First Federal or
no,
just the checking? So, the
No.
US Bank, what's the interest rate we're getting on that money?
all that money, that varies, because that's investments, that's just like treasuries. And I'll give you an example, BMW, Bank North, then your different types of banks, what's gonna be in there. Pacific Western Bank, Sallie Mae, US Bank, all these are different types of banks, because when you're dealing with savings accounts with cities or whatever, or states, they're very well regulated. They're not gonna, you can't go into this high-risk thing or anything like that, okay? So that stays in that US Bank.
So another question, please. The Chase General account, that's gonna be switched to First Federal then?
Yes.
Okay. Cause the interest rates
Eventually.
are pretty good right now.
Pardon?
If you're a saver, interest rates are pretty good right now.
Right now.
Uh,
But remember,
yeah.
you know, we have
They
our.
haven't been for years,
Yeah.
but,
And we have 3 accounts with Chase, which is gonna be converted over to First Federal. We have a Chase, our payroll account, which is gonna fluctuate. We have our Chase General account, that's our main account, that's where the funds go into that account. Then we have our Chase Secondary account, and that has to deal with the fire department or all their different calls, you know, of rescues, things like that. Then the insurance companies send monies into this account to pay for that service.
Mention the sweep account that First Fed's gonna give us,
Huh?
the sweep account.
I'm not familiar with
First Fed's also providing us with a sweep account. We don't have that now with Chase. And anything that we don't need immediately is going to be swept into another account that's actually gonna earn 1.2%. We don't earn anything right now, Chase. It's all eaten up by fees, anything we might get.
thank you.
Any more questions for Mr. Gruber? All right, Tom, thank you for that report. Move on to All Director, Mr. Pete.
Mr. President, some of the things I'm working on currently that you're gonna be seeing in the coming weeks, some of it's gonna wait until we have a new council member on board, because it's actually gonna go to that person's committee. One is the jail contract, which comes up annually for housing inmates for the city of Philadelphia, out of municipal courts. The other one is rental registration. The rental registration is ready to go. I just want to touch base, rental registration, that's where we're gonna have rental units. People that have rental units will have to register and be subject to an annual inspection. This is something that the building and zoning inspector and the fire department really wanna get going. So you're gonna have that before you to discuss. The only thing that's holding it up that I wanna touch base on is I wanna talk to our computer and IT person, because it does require you to register online to make it more convenient. We'll make sure that's something he can do. And I'd like to have that set up and going before I bring it to you, so we can say, here's how they're going to register. And we'll be able to show you right on the computer how it's done. And then the other one that I am looking at is vacant property registration. That's something that Dover recently passed. I'm looking at that at the behest of the mayor. I think the mayor and I both think this might be something that would be adequate and may suit our city. Obviously, I'll have to make it, adapt it to meet our circumstances, but I did get a copy of that from the city of Dover, and I am reviewing it, and I also gave them a copy of our CRA legislation if they're interested in doing something similar to what we did over in Dover, so we worked very well with our sister city. If there's any questions, feel free to ask me.
Mrs. Ramos.
On the rental registry, are the landlords gonna be registering how many people they're allowed in that unit?
They're gonna have to register who's living in that unit, so we would know who's living at a unit. They're gonna have to register anytime there's a change of occupancy, and that'll be subject to an annual inspection, so that we'll see if there's 20 people living in a rental unit that's not appropriate, or they're living in filthy conditions. They're gonna have to be subject to an annual inspection, and we're gonna know at that point.
Okay, 'cause
And we will see,
Okay.
we'll find out, if there's one place and there's 20 people living in it, they're gonna have to notify us of that,
okay, good,
all right?
thank you.
Any other questions for the law director? All right, thanks, Marvin. All right, we'll move into our commission reports. First up, the planning commission, Mayor Day.
Planning Commission, as I said in my report, will be meeting here tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
All right. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Due to no variance requests, the meeting for tomorrow at 5 PM here in council chambers has been canceled.
All right. Thank you. Airport Commission, anybody, Dan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Airport Commission will be meeting tomorrow evening at 6 PM in council chambers.
All right. Move on to Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right. Move on to the Health Board, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Health Board will be meeting Wednesday at noon here in the council chambers.
All right. Move on to our council committee reports. First up is Finance, Mr. Ricklick.
Thank you, Mr. President. No formal report this evening.
All right, Public Works and Economic Development, Mr. Lanzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. No official report, but I was informed by the service director that we'd like to have Resolution 41, 2022 be passed on an emergency today.
All right. All right, we move on to Safety, Health, and Services, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. No formal report this evening.
All right. Move on to Zoning and Annexation, Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President, no report.
All right, we'll move on to Cemetery, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right. Contact and Special Committee, Mrs. May.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right. All right, the floor is now open for visitors' comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise, state their name and address, and address all comments to the chair. You will be given 5 minutes, 5-minute limit. Do we have anybody? I know we got some guests here to see. Anybody wishes to? Is that,
Let me make sure the mic is on.
Greg, can you check to
I'll
make
get
sure
it.
that's?
Yeah, okay.
Hold on a second. Make sure the microphone's on. Drains the batteries.
Julie, how many streaming?
All right.
Paul Beitzel, 3616 Crooked Run Road, New Philadelphia. Mayor Day, Council President Don Kemp, and Council at Large. I'm here tonight to support Jeff Mathias and his friends in his proposal for a House of Hope. First, let me give you a little background on his life. Jeff had a father who was known as Shorty Mathias. One of his goals was to sell cars, and I understand in some cases he even would lend money to someone who really needed a set of wheels. This is the DNA that was passed on to his son Jeff, to love God and to help people. It has been said there are only two kinds of people, and they're those that are part of the problem and those that are part of the solution. I hope all of you will be part of the solution to this problem. We have a very big sign in the town square that says, "Welcome to the city." How would you feel if you were a homeless person and you came into town and looking for a place to rest your weary soul and body, and there was no place to go? What Jeff wants to do is give these people a ray of hope. Someone wrote a verse about this subject. He said that man can possibly live about 40 days without food, about 3 days without water, about 8 minutes without wear, but he can't live 1 second without hope. That's pretty significant, isn't it? City Council, if you're going to wait till everybody gives their objections to this site, you're gonna wait a long time, because I feel like most all the objections I heard was superficial at the most. So I hope you will take all this into consideration and do the right thing for the people that can't help themselves.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beitzel. Are there others that wish to? Ben?
Pastor Ben Lipper, 126 22nd Street Southeast. Mayor Day, esteemed members of council, President Kemp, thank you for listening tonight. First and foremost, as a member of the Friends of the Homeless, our House of Hope Committee, I want to thank all of you who attended our public forum that we had. There was great attendance. It personally touched our hearts to see so many public officials, judges, county commissioners, many people on our council there, so that was really important. We had a lot of good dialogue, a lot of good community support as well, a lot of good questions and comments that came from there. So I just want to thank you for that. I did want to give you an update publicly. I did email it to some of you today because I know there's been petitions going around about people against our shelter. I did pull up our change.org petition this afternoon, and that has 242 residents from New Philadelphia in support of this current location. So we're very grateful for those people and to see such strong community support. And yeah, there definitely remains a difference of opinion about where it should go. But I think there's a strong consensus from our forum that it needs to happen. It needs to happen in our city. It needs to happen for our people, and the need is there. And then one other thing I wanted to share with you that I think would be helpful, I shared this at our forum. I did some research on other communities because the more I thought about this issue, the more I thought about this issue probably isn't that uncommon. Homeless shelter falling between the cracks in zoning, as whether it's commercial or business or residential. And I did find a great solution in Van Wert, Ohio, which is about as far away in Ohio as you can get without still being in the state. But if you actually look at Van Wert, very similar city in the fact that it's a small city right outside of a big city, Fort Wayne, very similar to like we are with Canton. And they had an issue, they were starting a shelter in 2018 for the first time. So we have the added advantage that we actually have a shelter. They were putting one into place that hadn't existed. And they were running into this issue, is it commercial, or excuse me, is it residential, or is it business? And they were spending all this money on legal fees, trying to get to an answer. their law director and the attorney for this homeless shelter, I believe it's called the Refuge of Hope, sat down and they decided, after all this arguing, this complex issue required one sentence that needed to be added to their zoning code. It just so happens I pulled up our zoning code to look at similar zoning issues, and we actually do have a similar code for that. If you look at 116109 for permitted conditional uses, that code states the following may be located within residential districts provided such uses conform to all regulations and requirements pertaining to conditional uses in residential districts, and that such uses are consistent with the aforementioned statement of purpose. And it goes on to define what that means. So there's 5 different letters for that. A is residential multifamily dwellings. B is civic, so that goes on to define like churches and other places of worship. C is educational, primary or secondary public schools. D is social services, general and special hospitals. E is recreational, public parks, recreational fields and playgrounds. And then the sentence that would need to be added to help the homeless shelter fit into this would be labeled letter F, and it could just say homeless shelters, emergency shelter, drop-in shelter, permanent supportive housing, transition housing. That's what they added to theirs. I'd be happy to share that information with any members of council who would be interested in that. And there are 2 conditions that they added to that as well in order for it to be approved. Those 2 conditions was that there must be a supervised person on site all times at the shelter, which our shelter currently abides by, and there's a privacy fence put up on the property. And 2 other things that I've heard mentioned by our committee as well is that all residents of the shelter receive background checks. And then the last one is no resident with a history of sexual crimes or arson will be allowed residence. And I think our committee would be more than happy to talk about other conditions we're willing to add to that. So I just wanted to share that with you. I know there's been a lot of back and forth, but there are still simple solutions that are out there. We can find common ground on this issue, and we can work together on that. And I just have one last question. Do we have an assigned date yet for when this will be discussed yet?
No.
Okay, I guess my question lies with resolution, or excuse me, it's 1151, which says we have 45 days from when it's assigned to when it's reported back, and we're on day 27 right now.
That's the planning commission. Wait a minute, I got my papers here.
I think, Mr. President,
Yes, Ms.
all matters should be directed to the table.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we haven't been, I think we haven't decided. I think, we're waiting, we got a new council member that needs to be appointed so we'd be at full strength. But I have assigned it, so it's up to Mrs. Ramos to set the council, her committee date and what date that would be. And I think a lot of the comments are very well taken or seen, but it would be served better, all those comments at a meeting of the committee so that we have more time than, other than the 5-minute limit, so we can go through all that stuff. Yes, Mrs. Ramos?
You mentioned 1151.01. The planning commission has the 45 days.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes I get confused with all the codes, so I appreciate your clarification.
But I think your comments are well taken, and, it's a process we gotta work through, and like you said, all these comments are great, but they'd be better served at when they actually have that committee meeting, whatever date that Mrs. Ramos chooses. I don't know where she's at as far as, wanting to choose that date. Do you have
I don't have a date, but we're doing research.
okay. Yes, Mr. Fate?
Mr. President, I just want to point out that we shared the same information with residents that came in. What we can do is, the clerk can notify you folks when there's going to be a committee meeting so that you can be here and have plenty of advance time to address the committee or make any comments that you want. I'm a fervent believer in democracy and having your say, and I think everybody here shares that sentiment. So we can definitely, the clerk can definitely inform you as to when that committee meeting will be. I know that the president has expressed an interest in having another council member here so that we have the full council.
Sure.
Which we're short on
So,
right now.
sorry, who are those 3 members again? It's Mrs. Ramos, There's an alternate and then,
The alternate will be the new members, the new council members.
okay, gotcha.
Could you make sure you give me your email address? There's the sign-up sheet on the
Yeah.
front, it's on the chair over, oh, right over there, yes, and I will email you.
Okay, yeah, that concludes my comments. Thank you. Yeah, we're just really excited to find out when that
Sure.
date is and we can start moving forward. Thank you.
Well, yeah, we do need to move forward, so. Anybody else wishing to address council?
Good evening. My name is Reverend Joseph Vankara. Address 1144 South Broadway Street, New Philadelphia. Business address 217 East High Avenue, New Philadelphia, the First Presbyterian Church of New Philadelphia. Esteemed members of council, I stand here today not just as a pastor of the First Presbyterian Church, but I also stand here today as the president of the board for Friends of the Homeless of Tuscarawas County. And our organization truly is an organization not only dedicated to helping the least of these in our community, but we are also an organization that seeks to make partnerships, seeks to make alliances, seeks to work with everybody to solve a common problem, including the city of New Philadelphia and everyone who comprises its government. We did have an open forum discussion with members from the neighborhood surrounding the Beaver Avenue property, which is being proposed as a possible site for the new shelter to be built. We had a very frank, very open, very honest, and I think a very forthright discussion and addressed all of the members of the community, including receiving their criticisms as well as some of their suggestions. We heard about many of the problems that many of the residents were fearful of, including the flooding problem that occurs sometimes on the property, including traffic, including our clientele, including our procedures, and including the access of law enforcement in case something should happen on site. At the same time, we also wanted to be able to present ourselves again as an organization dedicated to transparency and willing to meet halfway on any issue. We are not stuck in getting our way on anything. Everything is negotiable. Everything we want to do in the spirit of compromise to meet halfway on a common issue and to truly work with you, be your friends, be your allies and your partners in order to truly meet the needs of the homeless and the disadvantaged in our community. We know that in the spirit of this discussion during this entire project, there are some times in which tempers may rise, disagreements may be had, disagreements may escalate. But I want to stand here as somebody who truly wants to bring the temperature down on these discussions, because nothing good comes as a result of harsh feelings, of rash decisions, or of out-of-control emotion. We want to come to a reasonable, common-sense solution, and we truly think that one of the ways to do that is, again, through the zoning code, whether it be amended, whether it be clarified. The thing that we simply just want is the understanding of where we stand in terms of the city, whether or not we are, in fact, a social service organization, whether we are a business, whether we are a multifamily residence. We simply want clarification from the city and its officials about where we stand, about what we are, what we do, what we can do, and where we can go. Because in my opinion, I feel as though we have not been given that information, or at least been given any clarification about that information. So we truly want to work together, but we simply also want to know how we can go forward and where we can go in terms of how we can fulfill our mission, as well as continue to work with all of you in order to make our city better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Ricklick, 819 North Broadway Street, New Philadelphia. I too would like to talk about the homeless shelter. I want to take a little different perspective on this, though. I was at the meeting at Sacred Heart last week concerning the shelter. While none of the proposed sites are anywhere near my home, this issue does affect me because this is my community. Anybody who knows me knows how passionate I am about this community, and this is weighing heavily on my mind. So I'm here tonight to advocate for the shelter, but not necessarily for a specific site. First, I'm not affiliated with the homeless shelter at all. I do know some of the people, not directly, but I am familiar with some of them. I have done some research, and I've lost some sleep over this, but I did ask Mr. Ben Lippert, who I met last week, if he would meet with me and perhaps answer some questions that maybe he could help me with. He has steered me in the direction of a gentleman that I need to probably get more answers from. It is my understanding that those seeking the site for this House of Hope, this new homeless shelter, that they've had multiple sites rejected by the city for various reasons. And I'm not getting into those reasons tonight. I have learned that there are several facts concerning this issue. Fact one, a new shelter is needed. The current structure is deplorable. I have not seen it firsthand. That is the next thing on my list that I would like to do. I would like to come visit the shelter. But I did see pictures that night, and the pictures are not pretty. Fact two, the services, or most of the services, that these residents of the shelter receive are, in fact, here in the county seat, here in New Philadelphia. Fact three, the residents of the shelter are provided with a 90-day program to help them with such items as gaining and maintaining employment, as well as acquiring housing of their own. It could possibly take a little longer, I found out, but that is the current guideline. Fact four, background checks are conducted by the New Philadelphia Police Department on these residents. Fact five, sex offenders, those convicted of arson or violent crimes, are not admitted. Fact six, the residents have a 10 p.m. curfew. And the last fact, which there's probably more, but I'm just focusing on 7, is that guest belongings are inspected. I know this great country of ours, we were given rights. There's 10 amendments to the Constitution that gives us such things as freedom of speech, freedom of press, the right to assemble peacefully, among others. Our young people, the elementary, middle school, high school kids, are taught these freedoms. And they're also taught that along with these freedoms comes responsibilities. I know this because I taught it. While not mandatory, these responsibilities are central to helping make a democracy run more smoothly. Our young people learn about the responsibility of staying informed on the facts of the issues affecting our communities, to be active in the civic process, being proactive if possible, to understand a problem, to research information, to run for a public office. Our youth learn about the responsibility of community involvement. By becoming actively involved in our communities, it can help the well-being of our community by recognizing where help or change is needed. We can get involved through offering our knowledge, offering our talents to organizations, committees, community projects that all can help make our community a better place. Because our communities are only as good as the citizens make it. As an educator, I volunteered my time to help provide age-related service activities for our students. We decorated the town square at Christmas time. We had cookie walks at York Elementary, where we raised thousands of dollars to help organizations such as Share Christmas, the Dover New Philadelphia Food Pantry, Schönbrunn Village. We raked leaves for the elderly of this community because they needed our service. These kids helped make a difference in our community in a small way. Our young people are taught that they have the responsibility of practicing tolerance, because with democracy comes diversity. Those who live beside us and work with us can often be people from different backgrounds, much different than ourselves. Whether they have a different color of skin, a different nationality, a different religion, we need to learn to support and protect the rights of others. And perhaps the biggest of all Our youngsters learn to see the need to be responsible, to pass it on, to pass on the importance of good citizenship to future generations. Our young people are the future of our communities. And I feel right now that we are not setting a very good example for them. We are showing our young people that it's okay to turn our back on a population of people that need our help. I liked what I heard last week at the meeting, that the shelter provides its residents with a hand up, not a hand out. I like that terminology. So I implore city administrators, city council to actively, and I emphasize that, actively help the Friends of the Homeless Shelter locate a place that they can call home. Perhaps we may need to address previous locations that were rejected, locations that maybe match their zoning needs. Your job in serving this city is not an easy one. Your job is to do what's best for the common good, and that includes all individuals. So I ask you to be proactive. If this shelter closes its doors, then we're going to have to be reactive. It doesn't have to be this way. The Friends of the Homeless keep looking and asking for locations to place this new shelter, and they keep getting turned away. I saw a quote recently that said, "Positions are temporary, ranks and titles are limited, but the way you treat people will always be remembered." Let's give our young people something good to remember us by. Let's show our young people that we are responsible for doing the right thing. Let's show our young people what good citizenship looks like. Because when are we going to give the Friends of the Homeless Shelter a hand up? Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you. Anyone else? Said, thank you for your coming tonight and sharing your comments, and said we'll get a committee meeting date set, and so we get the word out to everyone. All right, we'll move on to council comments. Any council members have comments this evening? Mayor Day, yes, Mr. Rick.
I do want to thank everyone for coming.
Sure.
Whether they're for or against, I really believe everybody should express their opinions and help council make decisions. And again, you took your time to come out here this evening, which most people don't take their time to come to council. Usually council are very empty. We live stream, we have 7 people live streaming. They can't even get on their computer what's going on in their community. I think that's really a shame, because if everybody's so upset about this one way or another, you think they at least dial in to see what's going on if they can't take the time to come here. So I appreciate, even though one's my wife, okay? And she is telling the truth, been up a lot of nights, yes. But again, she is a very compassionate person, she's a very giving person, and her history and track record of helping students understand of giving to their community, I don't have to say a word. Her present of her students, if she could get all her students here, that would be a dangerous thing for this building, I will tell you that. So, but again, I want to thank each and every one that has come. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rickey. I just had a question, Mayor Day. When's the central committee? I mean, we're going through the process. When do you think that we would have?
January 26th. January 26th is Central Committee's meeting.
Okay. So then, all right. So then after that, it's time frame. Once you appoint them, we can swear them in, swear
Yeah.
that person in, whoever it may be. Yes, Mrs. Romulus.
Can you explain what you're talking about? I don't know if people know
Oh.
what you're talking about.
Mr. Seldright has resigned as of the January 1st, so we're going through the process of appointing a new city council member. So the Republican Party that Mr. Seldright is a part of has the job of appointing a new council member, and what is there, a 10-day, there was a window?
Well, there has to be time for resumes to be sent to the Republican headquarters.
And so then the central
And then,
committee meets and,
Central Committee, New Philadelphia, members of the Central Committee meet on the 26th to interview the candidates and make a selection.
So that would be the process, so after that, we'll be able to have our 7th council member on board, whoever that person would be. Any other comments from the council? All right, move into our legislative agenda.
Resolution number 39, 2022, a resolution by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, authorizing the annexation of real properties located in Goshen Township, parcel numbers 25-01887-000 and 25-01989-000, owned by Lawver Properties, and declaring an emergency, third reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Yes, Mrs. Ramos.
Mr. President, I move that Resolution 39, 2022 be approved.
Yes,
Second
Mrs.
that.
Second, all right. Any discussion by community, administration, council? Roll call.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right, resolution 39, 2022 has passed.
Resolution number 41, 2022, a resolution by the City of New Philadelphia, Tuscarawas County, Ohio, to authorize the service director to enter into an LPA federal ODOT LET project agreement and any other necessary agreements for the milling and filling of portions of County Road 21, 16th Street Southwest, Mill Avenue Southwest, 17th Street Southwest, Ray Avenue Northeast, and Wabash Avenue Southwest, PID 114061, CRS, Tusk, New Philadelphia, paving Phase 1, agreement number 37316, and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there any action taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Lonzo?
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that the rules be suspended on Resolution 41, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mrs. May, thank you. Any discussion by administration, council? Roll call.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. I'd entertain a motion to pass resolution 41-2022. Mr. Alonso?
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we pass Resolution 41, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mrs. May, thank you. All right, any discussion by the community, administration, council? Roll call.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right, resolution 41-2022 has passed.
That concludes legislation for this evening, Mr.
Right.
President.
All right, is there any unfinished or old business we brought before council this evening? Mr. Bates?
I just wondered if Dean could one time say, "I am the great and powerful Oz." Is that there?
Where's your hat?
Don't,
There we
Dean. Don't fall for the trap.
Live from Dallas, Texas, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, yeah. Is there any new business we brought before council this evening? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
from Dallas, Texas.
He can't do one from there.
Members of the New Philadelphia City Council. And on the behalf of the Texas Ascension, I move to adjourn this council meeting.
All right, council's adjourned at 8:23. Thanks, everyone.